Hey, look out. It's Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
He's back. It's Joël Malm, and the book is called, his latest book, Love Slows Down, How to Keep Anger and Anxiety from Running or Ruining, actually, Life's Relationships. A great book, and he's also counselor, teaching pastor, and he has his BA in political science. Why didn't we vote for him in the election?
Yes.
Well, it actually should have been a BS in political science.
You're right.
I agree.
Wait, is this a Christian station? I'm sorry. I should have said that.
Yes, but we're not typical, are we, Dan?
No, not by any stretch of the imagination.
We broke the mold a long time ago. Hey, Joel.
Joel, I'm with you. I had a minor in political science. It was a BA, but it should have been a BS. You're right.
Yeah. Hey, this book is not BS. It's a great book. Love Slows Down, How to Keep Anger and Anxiety from Ruining Life's Relationships. Well, we talked, I think it was a couple of months ago. It was a great starter.
Mm-hmm.
This topic, and somebody that we'd like to talk to over and over again. I thought about we talk about anger and relationships and family dynamics. Here we are moving into the holidays. No matter what size crowd we have for Thanksgiving and Christmas, we're going to be in everybody else's space, people we normally don't see every day. How do we handle this whole thing, this anger dynamic, whether it be on our side or on somebody else's side when we get together for family gatherings? What do you think?
Well, I mean, the first thing is, I talk in the book about how anger, it's almost always comes from the same sources. And one of the best things you can do is just go in mentally prepared. Uncle Chuck, you know what he's going to do, right?
Oh, Uncle Chuck. Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Uncle or aunt, whoever. Go in prepared. I joke in the book about on Friday nights when my wife and I have to go somewhere and it's 5:00, she has to kind of square off with me and say, sweetheart, there's going to be traffic. It's 5:00. It's Friday. We're going to get there. Take a deep breath, inhale, exhale. And
I'm anxious just hearing you say that, Joel. I picture myself sitting in traffic.
Yeah. It sounds dumb, but just mentally preparing, because it always sneaks up on us. And we're like, he got me again, Uncle Chuck or whoever. I'm sorry if your name's Chuck, but and you're an uncle. But it tends to be the same things and the same topics. And if you can go in mentally prepared, that's a big part of it, is just saying, you know what? Figure out your response beforehand, because anger is always a secondary emotion. It's always a response to feeling threatened to your safety or your security or your connection with others or your feeling of control. So go in with that recognition that there's a good chance that one person's going to trigger you. And so how are you going to be the bigger person, mentally prepare beforehand?
I think a good thing to do is read the book before you do that. Joël Malm, the book is called Love Slows Down. All right. I have an aunt, Chuck, so maybe...
You have an Aunt Chuck?
Yeah.
Wow.
and she's kind of a bully. Okay, so every family has the bully dynamic. I don't want to mention any names, but in our family there is a bully, and this particular bully just eventually punches my button, and I don't want to be there. So how do I deal with the same way? How do I deal with a bully in the family?
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing about bullies is, at the core of every human being, we're desperately insecure. That's just the bottom line. I mean, ever since Adam and Eve did their thing with the fruit, whatever that fruit was, we've all been desperately insecure. And so bullying, Paul Tournier, he was a famous Swiss psychiatrist. He talked about how every one of us deep inside, we respond to our own feeling of insecurity with either the strong response or the weak response. And the strong responder is that person who feels desperately insecure. And they're like, if I can just bully everybody around me, they won't ever identify just how insecure I am. So there's two ways to respond to a bully. First of all, you can figure out what their insecurities and then just go for the jugular, but that's not the Christian way.
Yeah.
Let's just stop there. Okay, that's a good answer. Let's go on to the next question.
Or you if you really have a desire to figure them out, sometimes you just got to step away from people, right? But if you really have a desire to figure them out, you got to recognize there's a fear, a deep insecurity within them. There's this one guy who's always a bully around me, and I finally figured out, I don't know why, but he's super insecure that he never went to college. And it's like, it's a dumb thing. I mean, if you've been to college, they'll take anybody. As long as you got money and time, college will let anybody in. But they don't, he's super insecure about it. So he starts making these comments about, oh, you're educated. I'm like, dude, what's your problem? And it's recognizing that insecurity. And then you've got to be the bigger person, which is hard sometimes because you're like, again, you want to go for the jugular when you figure out their insecurity and start calling them dumb or something. And that's the crazy thing is there's some people that are really gifted at finding your weak spot. Bullies are pretty good at that too, like knowing the thing you're insecure about. So they just poke at that, hoping to avoid you seeing that they're actually the one projecting their own fear onto you.
That's so good.
And you said kind of there's two different ways you can go at it, going for the jugular. And I think probably on the opposite end of that is what I see like my wife do a lot of times in certain family situations. She'll just back off and just sit on her own and just avoid the whole situation, which is not always the healthy way either, because then the other people are thinking, oh, why does she hate us so much?
Right. I mean, so there's the weak response as well. That's the other one. Paul Tournier talks about the strong and the weak response. The weak response is if I can just keep my mouth closed, stay below the radar, nobody will know I'm insecure. And sometimes it's in people-pleasing behavior. If I can just do everything they want and just comply.
Right. Yeah.
But, you can be a Christian and still express lovingly how something affected you. You just got to go in beforehand, recognizing I'm going to forgive them no matter how they respond to this. I had a situation I talk about in the book where I started making fun of my sister. It was at a Thanksgiving dinner. And she's about 5 minutes into it. She stopped and she goes, "Hey, you're belittling me right now." And I was like, oh, and she did it very gently, very calmly. And it was really insightful for me because I didn't realize I had been kind of seizing on that. My own strong responder thing was seizing on that weak spot that I saw in her. And it tried to make me feel better. But she pointed it out. And man, it was really helpful to me. The willingness to confront it, but she did it in a calm way. It wasn't like, you're always, Right. She did it very calmly. Hey, I feel belittled right now. And I was like, I didn't realize what I was doing. And so if you can confront it and you can be a good Christian and still confront it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
That's probably the case, not all the time, but people don't realize at some point that they are making somebody else feel uncomfortable or insecure, and eventually making them angry. We're talking with Joël Malm. It's called Love Slows Down, his latest book. I was looking at the anger types, and it's interesting because number 1, security based, 2 is connection based, and 3 is control based. You always say that, or in the book, you say that the anger is the secondary emotion. And I had to look at myself. I'm like, yeah, that's true. If I feel insecure, if I get hurt, it's usually the hurt or disappointed myself, disappointed somebody else. And then if I let that and don't deal with it, I get angry. And then if I get angry and that festers, over the years, it can become bitterness. And then I'm like, how do I get out of this? So how do we get out of it if it goes past the anger stage?
That's a great question because even with the people that express it, there are certain personality types that they prefer to kind of suppress it, and then it just shows up as resentment.
Yeah.
And they just can't stand this person and they can't quite figure out why. So in the book, I kind of, the way it's laid out is in the first part, I talk about reactionary anger. Like, how do you control like the traffic, somebody cutting you off, somebody saying something mean. But then in the back half of the book, I specifically dive into that deep-seated kind of anger that's just lying below the surface when you're just tired of it all, and you're frustrated and you just find yourself exploding. And there's some specific things. One is at some point you just got to let it go, man. The Christian life in so many ways is about letting go of our desire to control everything and have everything in our control, and trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. You've got to let go of the bad, the things that people did to you. And man, I know injustice is done all the time to people and it's not right. But the only person that's being hurt by hanging on to it is yourself.
Yeah.
The perpetrator has moved on. And if they're a chronic abuser, they don't probably even care what they've done. So you're looking for them to come and repent, and it's probably not going to happen. But the great thing is that the power is in your hands. You can let it go right now through forgiveness. The other thing you have to let go of is you have to let go of the idealized past. I talk in the book about rosy retrospection, how we always look back to, remember back in the days? And King Solomon said, don't say, why were the former days better than today? For it's not from wisdom that you ask those things.
Yeah.
And we tend to look back at the past as the idealized past, and we kind of filter out all the bad stuff. And it was, remember when? So you've got to be letting that go, because otherwise you're going to be resentful of the way things are today. I mean, you're looking at our country today, and you're like, oh, remember the good old days in America? And you're like, oh, those days are, oh, I hate, and look who's guilty for it, of God making this happen, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to do that. You got to walk, you let it go, walk in forgiveness, letting go of the past, the negative and the positive, and be embraced today, which is kind of what we talk about in the idea of solitude, is just, you've got to be in constant connection with God, because if you're not, there's no hope other than that, than your connection with the relationship with Jesus. And the great thing is, even in the middle of chaos around you, if your relationship with Jesus is strong and you're connecting with him, you're going to have that peace that passes all understanding. You know, the be anxious for nothing, but in everything, through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds. Walk in that connection with God. And then the third element of it is, you've got to be in community. And that's what's been so hard about this year is, man, keeping the community element is it's almost like there's an asserted effort to keep us apart from each other. And we're seeing suicide on the rise. We're seeing depression on the rise. And it's like, well, hello, we are made to be in community with others. Don't be surprised by this. And it's not a good thing. And we have to figure out, and the thing about community is it's inconvenient. It's a whole lot easier to sit at home, have DoorDash bring your Chick-fil-A or Chick-fil-A delivered to your house, and watch Netflix.
Yeah.
But community has to be super intentional. And when you're not involved in community, it's like a coal that rolls away from the fire. It loses heat in a hurry. And even the strongest of us, if we're not connected with that fire of the community of others, you're going to lose heat in a hurry. And it's kind of like an animal on the gazelle out on the prairie. Like as soon as they separate from the herd, they're prime target to get picked off by lions or cheetahs. So community is that element. And when those three are working together, letting go, taking time for solitude, finding that mental solitude from the Lord, and then walking in community with others, the anger just starts to dissipate. It's this weird thing. It's not like you wake up one day or you wake up one day and just go, wow, I'm not quite as angry as I used to be. But you have to trust that process.
So take it from us, before you go to Thanksgiving and sit with Uncle Chuck, read Love Slows Down by Joël Malm, and be ready.
Or in my case, and Chuck.
Chuck, yeah.
I've got to finish it.
Got a great beard, though. So
I have started it. I got to finish before Thanksgiving. Hey, this guy needs his own show. Seriously, Joël Malm, and the latest book, Love Slows Down. I'd love to catch up with you, Joël, after the first of the year. And we'll touch base, because this is a topic we all deal with. Everybody deals with this, and we love how you approach it. Thanks for doing what you do. We got to take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.